If they catch you in the forest, they will kill you and eat you. And a lot of natives believe that that particular tribe of Bigfoot are responsible for people disappearing in like national forests.
Welcome back to Bigfoot Society. In this episode, we talked to Alex, a retired Salvation Army pastor who served in Klowack, Alaska, on Prince of Wales Island. Why are the Sasquatch so much more aggressive on Prince of Wales Island? And what did Alex see in his window that one night as a 7-year-old? Find out this and more on this episode of Bigfoot Society. I've got the privilege of chatting with Alex, and Alex is a retired Salvation Army pastor that served in Alaska. How are you doing tonight, Alex?
Doing well. Yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. Just hanging out on a nice Iowa night. Alex, how are you doing?
Doing well. Just enjoying this Montana weather. It's a little cold, a little bit snowy out here, but it's nice.
Oh, you know, I've talked to a few from Montana, and I know we're not talking about Montana tonight, but man, there's some crazy Montana Bigfoot things happening. It's wild in that state.
I've heard some stuff. I've heard a couple stories and I've had the privilege to meet a few of the Crow and Cheyenne people, and I've had a chance to chat with them about Bigfoot, and I've heard some pretty crazy stories about it.
But tonight, Alex, we are here to first chat about. So I met you on TikTok for a little bit of context, and you've had some interesting things happen during your time in Alaska, and also some interesting things you've heard as well. And I would love to have you share those with my listeners tonight, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Let's just get started.
Right.
I went to the Salvation Army there. I was stationed there. I was a pastor. I would be what you would call a lay pastor, which in their rank, the Salvation Army has quasi-army ranks. So like the officers are called captains or lieutenants or majors. And I, as a lay pastor, wasn't one of those. So I would have been called an envoy. So that would have been my title. But I ran the Klowack Church from June of 2010 to June of 2012. And the really crazy part is when I first went there, I didn't know anything about Southeast Alaska. I didn't know anything about Prince of Wales Island, where Klowack is located. Klowack and Prince of Wales are about 3 hours by ferry south of Ketchikan, southeast of Ketchikan. And they are about 45 minutes by plane. And the only way to get out to the island is either by ferry, boat, or plane. So when I got off the boat, I met the captains who were leaving. They were the ones who'd been running the church the past few years, and they were leaving and moving on to Wrangell, Alaska. As soon as I got in the van, the captain, without knowing me or knowing anything, says to me, he said, "Alex, let me tell you something." He said that this is something you'll need to know. He said that the people here take Bigfoot very seriously, like dead serious. He said they'll talk to you about Bigfoot. If you make fun of Bigfoot or if you make light of it, he said you'll offend people in the community, and he said you will have a really hard time in this community. It'll cause hard feelings. Never knew this guy, never met him, never discussed Bigfoot, didn't know anything about anything. And the instant I get in the van, that's the first thing he tells me. He said that these folks are really serious about Bigfoot here on Prince of Wales. And so I just thought that was crazy right from the gate, because generally if you walk up to someone you've never met and tell them that, Bigfoot is real and that the people in the local area take Bigfoot very seriously, you might get one of two responses. Well, okay, something. A lot of skeptics will be derisive. They'll be nasty or negative or make sarcastic comments. And Captain Ron said very clearly, don't do that here. And he said, if they talk to you about Bigfoot, just smile, listen to what they say, and just say, thank you for letting me know, and don't blow it off. So that was my introduction to Bigfoot on Prince of Wales Island. I knew Bigfoot was real because I had an experience with it when I was a kid. I actually saw one looking in my window. It was an albino Bigfoot back in 1978 in Hood River, Oregon. So I knew Bigfoot was real. They didn't have to tell me about it. But Captain Ron didn't know me from Adam, didn't know anything about Bigfoot, didn't know about, my history with Bigfoot. But so I learned right away that the people on Prince of Wales are the people that I interacted with were the Tlingit, the Haida, and the Tsimshian, and there were even some Yupik folks, and Yupik are my tribe. My father on my father's side, his mother was Yupik Alaska Native. As I was going along there and doing my duties in the Salvation Army, I had people sharing reports with me and things like that. But one of the things that particularly impressed me about them is I was told by one of their culture bearers. Now, I don't have permission to use her name, so I won't. But she told me their stories about Bigfoot. And they believe in the Tlingit tribe, at least in Klowack. I don't know about the Tlingit tribe in general because I had very limited interactions with Tlingits from outside of Klowack. That they believe that Bigfoot led their people to what is now Klowack, and that it showed them how to hunt, and that Bigfoot showed them how to live on the island. And so they actually have Bigfoot in their family history.
Really?
In their clan history. One of the tribes in particular, especially the one this woman was with, if I tried to pronounce her tribal name, I would completely slaughter it, so I'm really not going to try to. But suffice it to say that Bigfoot is a part of that tribe, and it's in the name of their tribe, their particular tribe in the Tlingit Nation. And so I thought that was very interesting. I really didn't meet anybody in Klowack or Prince of Wales who hadn't either had a sighting directly or knew someone in their immediate family who had a sighting. And I talked to many different people out there. And the Tlingits now on Klowack, there's a bit of a thing because a lot of people think that this Kushtika is a Bigfoot. Now, from what I was told by a tribal elder from Saxman, which is in Ketchikan, he said that the Kushtika is like the skinwalker. It's an evil spirit, a shapeshifter. And in Tlingit, Kushtika means land otter man.
Exactly.
And so it's very interesting. But according to Captain Joe and some of the elders from when we had celebration in Klowack one year, they had a gathering of the other Tlingits from around Southeast Alaska, and they all came and they were saying that the tribal elders from several of the different areas, like in, Juneau, and some of the other cities around in Southeast Alaska, like Sitka and some of the other places, they said the Kushtika is not a Bigfoot. They said it's an evil spirit or a spirit, and it can be benevolent or harmful depending on its feelings at the time. But they said it's not biological, it's never been human, and it doesn't have children, it doesn't reproduce, and it doesn't, propagate or do anything that the Bigfoot do. And so anyway, now the folks in Klowack do call Bigfoot Kushtika, and they believe that Kushtika is Bigfoot, but I know in like I said, meeting with the other tribal elders, they felt differently about it. So I'll just say that it is what it is. but that was the understanding that I had from different folks. The funny thing, though, about this Kushtika, though, is this tribal elder from Saxman told me that they're always seen with orbs and spiritual phenomenon, and they're the things that people see that travel interdimensionally. And he said that they can appear as Bigfoot. They can take on the form of Bigfoot. But he said they're not Bigfoots. And he said that he feels, and this was his opinion, that a lot of the people who see like quote unquote UFOs or orbs or other spiritual phenomenon with Bigfoot are actually seeing a shapeshifter. And that's what he said, because he said that's what the Kushtika is. So, and whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm not a Tlingit. I don't speak for them. I can only tell you what their tribal elders told me.
Alex, I've got a quick question for you. That is extremely fascinating, and I was not expecting any of that at all. When you said spiritual phenomenon, right? Or phenomena, you said orbs and spiritual phenomena. What else would fall into that category?
One person related to me a sighting of this Kushtika in Ketchikan, and they said that it you've seen the movie Predator, right?
Sure.
How the predator goes invisible.
Mm-hmm.
They said it did that.
Really? The Kushtika.
The Kushtika.
Wow.
And they said that it looked like a part otter, part man is what they said.
Mm.
But they said it shifted into like a fish and jumped into the water like a salmon, like a really large salmon, and jumped into the water. And but they said that it had orbs floating around it. And it said that the orbs were glowing different colors. And I think that actually, and I'm not saying all UFO phenomenon, but I think some of the UFO phenomenon associated with Bigfoot are actually these spiritual orbs that these shapeshifters are able to manifest. And my understanding is they can actually travel in between dimensions, is what they tell me. So I think that when people see a Bigfoot that's traveling interdimensionally, I don't think that's a Bigfoot. And it's not only them that say that. I've talked to Navajos, Zunis, Hopis, Sioux. I've talked to Crow. I've talked to Cheyenne. I've talked to Utes. I know as a Yupik person, we have a legend of the Amakuk, which is the same type of creature. It's also associated with spiritual phenomenon like orbs appearing and disappearing. Like you would follow the footprints of it, for example, and it would go in a straight line, and it would travel for so long, and then it would just stop, and it has nowhere to go.
Have you ever been in talk to any individuals by the Uinta Basin part of Utah?
I have not, to my knowledge. No, I have not.
Oh, in that's the Skinwalker Ranch. It's just a random thing I wanted to throw in there just in case. But
it's just very interesting to me about all these different things. But like the actual Bigfoot in Prince of Wales are different here than I think in the lower 48, because now I've heard of Bigfoot doing this in other places, but I've never actually seen it personally. In Klowack and in Heidelberg and Kassan and Thorn Bay and Whale Pass and Kaufman Cove and some of the other cities on Prince of Wales, they've actually been witnessed by locals, the Bigfoot, the real Bigfoot, not the Kushtika, the actual honest-to-God Sasquatch. They've been observed pulling trees up by the roots out of the ground that are like alive, pulling them out of the ground and then turning them upside down and shoving them like 3 to 4 feet into the ground with the roots facing up toward the sky. And the Tlingit elders told me they do that to mark their territory. And that if you see that, you know that's their territory and you're supposed to leave and not go around there. Because they said if you do, they'll get really aggressive with you. They'll like throw rocks, they'll throw sticks, but if you don't leave, then there's actually been reports of them like grabbing a hold of people and throwing them against trees and hurting them and stuff like that. Credible reports from people who were like police officers, former military, you know, people who aren't known in the community to be liars, hoaxers, or storytellers. They don't use drugs or alcohol. They're not mentally incapacitated or ill. They're just people who saw something really crazy that they couldn't explain.
How many toes do the Bigfoot have on each foot in that area? Do you know?
The track I saw had 5.
Okay. Do you know if there's any? Is it talked about in that area of certain individuals that have 4 foot or 4 toes?
I've heard of a 4-toed Bigfoot.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I also heard they were reddish in color.
Yep.
And they were smaller than the regular Bigfoot. And they were like way more aggressive. Is what I was doing.
So, Alex, this is wild. This is wild.
Yeah, they are like hyper aggressive. They are actually called cannibals. If they catch you in the forest, they will kill you and eat you. And a lot of natives believe that particular tribe of Bigfoot are responsible for people disappearing in like national forests and stuff like that in Alaska. And it's really, really interesting stuff. And it's really funny because science is always saying there's no evidence for Bigfoot and things like that. And yet you have native tribes who I've personally interacted with in Canada, like the Ojibwa and others. And you would, you know, some of the other First Nations in Canada who are geographically separated from, you know, these other natives in like the southwest and of the U.S., like in the Navajo in like Arizona and New Mexico and places like that. And yet they have the same legends of the same creatures. And they have them right alongside eagle, bear, you know, horse, beaver, you know, scorpion, snake. And, you know, they're actually reporting on creatures that they see in real life. To natives, Bigfoot is as real as you and I. And, you know, they're always like, they always think it's funny, the natives I've talked to, because I'll talk to them about Bigfoot and they're like, oh, the white man believes in that now, huh? You know, it's like we've been knowing about that for years.
This is old. This is old news to us. We're dealing with this for years.
Yeah, they're like, these white scientists come around here looking for Bigfoot, and we tell them they're stupid. And I'm like, okay, why? And they said, because if Bigfoot wants to find you, he'll find you. You don't find Bigfoot; he finds you. You know, and stuff like that. So. I know the Tlingits told their kids to stay out of the forest unless they're together, and to be careful when they're walking in the woods, to use the buddy system and to make sure that they're always watching the area that they live in, especially if those weird reddish colored, hair colored Sasquatch are running around.
So, Alex, the crazy thing is that, and I have to be really careful about what I say, but I talk to a lot of people, and all the things you said about those 4-toed big, I've heard from at least one other person in another state, not Alaska. And it's not just like, you are absolutely right, because I've heard this same almost details told that they happen in, even down to pulling up the tree by the roots and putting it upside down. And that's all I can say right now. It's just incredible how your story had so many similarities. Do you think that four-toed tribe is in different states or just in the Pacific Northwest? Or
I think they immigrated across the Bering Strait land bridge, the same as the other Bigfoots.
Sure.
I'm almost wondering, based on the descriptions that people have given me, if maybe they're not some throwback to the orangutan or something. Some of the people I've heard describe them in a way that almost makes them sound like orangutans. It's also interesting because a lot of people, they think orangutans are these, calm and peaceful apes, and yet orangutans will grab a hold of, other animals, rip them apart and eat them, even their own young. So, that's just the thing, is that I've heard a lot of bad reports. And from what I understand, that red-haired tribe, I know there was some tribe. I was talking to a guy who was Hoopa, and he said there's Oma, and he said that means the boss of the woods, like the boss, the king of the woods, the owner of the woods, the leader of the woods, or whatever. He said the Omas are different than those guys. And he said that the Oma will leave you alone if you leave them alone. These other guys, the four toes, and he had a name for them, but I could not pronounce it. I'm very sorry. I guess my linguistic skills are a little weird, but he pronounced it, and my ear and my mouth just could not, my brain and my mouth could not coordinate to form the words.
No problem. If any listeners know of that name, feel free to send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com.
So much stuff I learned in Klowack, and then there's my own sighting in Klowack. I didn't actually have a personal sighting because I was distracted during the event that happened. If you want, I'll get into my sighting real quick.
Oh, absolutely.
And we can discuss other stuff after if you like or not.
Sure.
Okay. My brother Morgan and my sister Tara. My brother Morgan passed away 3 years ago. I really wish that he was still alive, because he could tell you like what he saw and some of the stuff he observed that I didn't observe during the event. But what happened was we were going up Big Salt Lake Road in that's a road that leads from Klowack to Thorn Bay or to Kaufman Cove. If you go right, you go to Thorn Bay. If you go left, you go to Kaufman Cove. So I turned left on Prince of Wales Island Road, and we were heading towards Kaufman Cove, which is where we were going to go and visit. It's really pretty out there. There's a pebble beach, and it's really nice. And I wanted to take my brother and sister up there and show it to them. And so anyway, we get about a quarter of a mile, half a mile or so up the road, Prince of Wales Island Road. And my brother's diabetic. So he's like, Alex, can you stop? I got to use the restroom. And so I'm looking for a place to pull off. And I see what looked like, it was either like an old logging road or something. I'm not sure, but it looked like at one time it had been a logging road, but it hadn't been used in a while. And so we pulled off into there, and he gets out and he's urinating. And then he comes back around the corner and he goes, "Hey, Alex, come here." And I'm like, "What, man? It's cold. It's April. It's cold. There's snow on the ground. I don't want to get out, but he's like, "Come here. You need to look at this." And so I'm like, "Okay." And I get out, and he calls me over. I walk over to him, and in a snowbank, there were 3 tracks, and the tracks were about, I'd say roughly about 5 feet apart, and they were in a straight line, which is weird, because when people walk, they walk, side by side with their feet. You know what I mean? These looked like somebody who was balancing on a tightrope or something. It was weird. But there was 3 tracks, and they were in the snow. The ground was hard, so it didn't leave like it did leave an impression, but it didn't leave like a deep impression. The tracks were about. I wear a size 14 triple E, and these were a couple inches longer than mine, so I'd say about a 16 or a 17. And its feet were wider than mine. Somebody asked me about how big I thought it was, and I'll tell you what, I am not a math person, okay? Math is actually my worst subject. So I say, well, I think they're about 3 or 4 inches. When I told Morgan that, he was like, you idiot. And he was like, those things were like 6, 7 inches apart, man. And they were 6, 7 inches wide. He's like, they're not 3 to 4 inches, you idiot, and he was fussing at me. So that's one of the reasons why I was glad he was there, because I have a real problem with like looking at something and reckoning how big it is, and he doesn't. Morgan is very mathematical. He was very logical and factual, and so yes, the shoe was a 16 or a 7. It would have been, if it were wearing shoes, the foot would have been like a 16 or a 17, and it was wider than my triple E. And so we're looking at it and we're like, Morgan had pictures of it, but unfortunately when he passed away, the pictures were lost. And I don't have any photos left of them. But the other part was we got chased out before we could do any measurement or anything, because he was like, he told me, he said, why don't you do that Bigfoot scream that you do? And so I did it, and I'm not going to do it right now because it would like blow our audio out. But it's just a basic scream. I did that, and then about 20, 30, 10, 20, 30, I don't know, seconds later, something grabs a hold of a big old tree and starts shaking that sucker back and forth. It was whipping it back and forth, and that was a good sized tree. Whatever was grabbing a hold of that tree, it was monstrously strong. Monstrously strong. And then, like, we start hearing, like, branches breaking and stuff like that. And then off to my right, I'd say about 10 or 20 feet away, I hear a whoa. And then again, it goes whoa, real loud and aggressive, just like that. Scared the living piss out of me. And whatever vocalization that thing was doing, I could feel it in my body. It resonated in my body. You know what I mean? And it was like, I was like, we need to get the hell out of here now. And then so we all jump in the van, get out, peel out of there, and I head straight back to the church. I'm done. I saw Bigfoot when I was a kid. It'd be interesting to see another one, but let's not and say we did, right? But when we get back, Morgan tells me he actually saw one peeking its head out from behind a tree. He said it had a very large head. He said it was black. The skin on the face was black, and the hair was black, and it had like brownish eyes. And he said he saw it for about a second or two, and it popped back behind the tree. And he said it was probably about 7 to 8 feet off the ground where the head was. And that's pretty much the experience we had with that. Now, I went back and I talked to one of the Tlingit elders. His name is Al Jackson, and I actually do have permission to use his name. On Prince of Wales, they call him Mr. Bigfoot. Whenever anybody in any of the tribes has a Bigfoot sighting, they go and tell Al Jackson about it. Anyway, he was featured on the show Monsters and Mysteries in Alaska. They actually interviewed him for that. That was, I don't remember what year that was. Was it 2011, 2012, 2010? I can't remember. But anyway, he was on that show and they interviewed him, and he took him up there, up on Klowack Mountain where those upside down trees are. And he showed the guy, and the guy actually took pictures of him and videoed him. And the thing that's weird about those trees on Klowack, there's no rope marks, chain marks, nothing. And that's not something that's, like a flood or something happened and, or a windstorm and that just happened, because there's actually out in that area, there's a bunch of them. And, they're in kind of weird places, but like, if you see those and you're out in the forest near Klowack Mountain, if you see those, or around Klowack or Heidelberg, if you see those trees, you're supposed to leave the area and not go near there. You're not supposed to hunt there. You're not supposed to fish there, and you're not supposed to go around there. And the elders also said that if you see a Bigfoot out there, they said don't look them in the face, because they take it like you're trying to challenge them. And they said don't look it in the eye. Look down to your right or your left. And they said just back away slowly. And there's just so many stories I heard about Bigfoot. It's just crazy. I mean, I never met a people who were so open to share their culture and their stories and their traditions with an outsider to their tribe. Because they would just tell you stuff. I mean, and they didn't like try to hide it, or, it wasn't, they had stories that they wouldn't tell people, obviously. But like if it was about Bigfoot or about their clans or their totems or, the stuff they believe in spiritually, they tell you all about it. We had a lady who was a culture bearer who was a good friend of my wife and I. We used to go over there and listen to her tell tales about their creation stories. And it's kind of funny because their stories are very similar to other tribal stories I've heard about creation.
Do those stories have anything to do with Bigfoot?
Absolutely.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He's one of the big people in their belief system. I don't want to say mythology because
sure,
it's actually real. They actually talk about stuff that they really observe out in nature. Now, people will take it or believe it or disbelieve it. To a skeptic, everything's a dude in a suit or, a misidentified black bear or brown bear or something like that, because to a skeptic, no amount of evidence other than a physical body will, even if you brought them a physical body, they might not accept it as evidence. They might say, oh, people just made that up. That's stupid. To a person who really doesn't want to hear the subject, there's nothing you can say to convince them. But, to a skeptic, everything's a dude in a suit. And I told a skeptic one time, I said, so if everybody's a dude in a suit, you're telling me that there's some society of hoaxers who've been jumping out on Native Americans since time immemorial here in North America, Alaska, China, Russia, Asia, Australia. There's a society of hoaxers around the world who are wearing suits and jumping out in monkey suits and scaring people for the last 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, however many years. You know what I mean? I said, either that's what you're saying it has to be, or there is actually a real living creature that's out there right now today, roaming the forests of different countries around the world, and people are seeing it, and either they're all liars and hoaxers, or it's true and there's something to it. Now, do I believe every single Bigfoot story? No, I do not. But you can usually tell if somebody's really had a Bigfoot sighting because they have tells. You know what I mean? One of the things that I watch people is their eyes. People who've really seen something, you can see it in their eyes. You know what I mean? What is it that you usually see in their eyes?
What is it that you usually see in their eyes?
Well, it's not always, you know, 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 it's trauma.
Yep.
Somebody who's really seen a Bigfoot up close and personal, not, somebody who's seen it like, 75, 100 yards away and they're looking at it through a scope or a pair of binoculars or something. I'm talking about like somebody like me as a kid who saw an albino Bigfoot looking in his window and was 3 to 4 feet from it. But like I said, to a skeptic, everything's a dude in a suit or a bear.
You mentioned how you've seen the look of trauma in someone who's actually seen a Bigfoot up close. Is that a look that you would see often in that Klowack area?
People who've had an up close and personal experience, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It changes you. It also shreds your brain. Imagine as a 7-year-old kid looking out your window and seeing something looking in at you that science, religion, and all the other people out there say doesn't exist. In one fell swoop, your brain now questions everything. Because if Bigfoot exists, nothing is off the table. Because I've heard, as a kid growing up, I'd heard stories about Bigfoot, but I'd put that in the same place as unicorns, trolls, elves, rainbow, bright stuff, that kind of stuff. Okay, that's where I put Bigfoot. But when you look out your window and you see one of those suckers looking in at you, you're done. That changes you. It literally, they actually have done brain scans on people who've passed polygraphs and stuff for Bigfoot. And they have a different response in their brain to processing information than people who have not seen one.
Wow.
And they have a strong trauma response when they talk about it. And that is something you can't fake. I mean, if somebody tells me they've seen a Bigfoot, I just look them in the eye. And I do. If they're smiling, if they're laughing, if they're just like, not taking it seriously, I don't listen to anything they say. I saw a guy who was a Navy SEAL. I kid you not, a guy I met who was a Navy SEAL. Okay. He had his DD-214s, his military ID, all of that. He told me, he said, I was a Navy SEAL, and he said, seeing an effing Bigfoot changed my life forever. He said, because now, he said, I used to go in the forest all the time. I used to hunt, fish, hike. I can't do that anymore. He said, because that scared me so bad. He said, I was in Vietnam. He said, I faced every type of human and animal that you can show me. He said, I fought bears. I fought people. He said, I fought wolves, tigers, lions, all kinds of stuff. And he said, there is nothing that scared me like that Bigfoot. And for a guy who was a Navy SEAL to say something like that, that's telling you something about Bigfoot.
Did he mention where he had seen that Bigfoot? What area?
Yeah, near Pikes Peak in Colorado.
Do you feel like, so the first thing is, you in that Klowack area, everyone has either seen or knows someone that has seen Bigfoot. Is there, are there stories that are always passed around in that area as like the ultimate encounter / story? Like, this story proves that they're out there. Anything that the story you kept hearing over and over and over again referred to?
There was one, and it was told to me. Al Jackson introduced me to 10 people. Again, he's Mr. Bigfoot. He's a Tlingit elder. And he introduced me to these guys, and they all told the same story, that they had a Bigfoot walk out There was a cedar mill on the outskirts of Klowack where they process cedar wood and stuff like that. And they had a Bigfoot walk right through the middle of the factory, or the sawmill, excuse me. And it was howling, letting out this horrible screech. It scared them so bad they wouldn't go back there again to work for like a month. And these were people in the community who are well known in the community as honest, God-fearing people who are not hoaxers, not pranksters, not liars, not alcoholics or drug addicts, don't have mental illness. They're just people who saw something really crazy they couldn't explain. And I believed them. They all saw it and they heard it walking through the middle of their work site.
That almost sounds like a Portlock type situation, except for there wasn't a massive amount of people being killed, but they did leave the area and not return. That's really, really interesting.
Well, and plus the Haida now in Heidelberg, they actually have a name for their Bigfoot. They call it Gagit. Means like wild man or something like that. And they've had some stories of like Bigfoot, like throwing rocks through people's windows or through their doors, stuff like that.
Living up there, and this is a totally random question. Did you have any thoughts about missing 411 or run into any situations regarding that?
They've had children, adults, and people go missing in the forests that were not found. They do have black bear on the island. They probably get up to about 200-300 pounds, but the average is about 150-200 pounds. And if you run into one, obviously, it would cause damage, but it's just weird. Because when you have bear kills, you find body parts, you find where the bear dragged them off. You see blood marks, stuff like that. These are people who disappeared and are never seen again. Not hide nor hair, not clothing. They may have been carrying rifles or fishing equipment. It's all gone, and nobody ever finds it.
Would you ever hear from people that would run into large animals that would have their necks broken, almost twisted and broken? I've gotten reports of that from Montana, where like even creatures like grizzlies would have their necks broken. They'd stumble upon animals like that.
In Klowack, when the Bigfoots kill something, or on Prince of Wales, they eat it. So you don't find animals usually that are just preyed upon and not eaten. So I would say that they have found animals who were killed. Like one, it had its skull crushed in. And the way it was done, it doesn't make sense that it would be a bear, because if a bear did it, you'd have, claw marks and stuff like that. What it looked like is somebody took like a hammer and hit the deer in the head, just like one hit. And, who could run down a deer and hit it in the head with a hammer? I don't know. Just saying.
That's intense. That is intense. How long ago again was it that you were in that Klowack region?
2010, June 2010 to June 2012.
Okay.
I still hear stories about stuff going on out there.
I was going to ask you, so there's still events unfolding in that area.
All the time.
Oh, wow.
That place is a paradise for Bigfoot, man. It's got fish. One part of Klowack has a salt lake. The other part has a freshwater lake. And you have like crabs, you have like shrimp, you have like seals, you have like different fish. You have all kinds. I mean, it's actually a temperate rainforest is what Klowack is classified as, and Prince of Wales. And so you have like lichen, you have like all kinds of fruit. They have like gooseberries, salmon berries, boysenberries, blueberries. They've got all kinds of berries around there. It's literally like the animals there don't starve.
Sounds like a perfect environment.
Yep. So they've said that, I know one guy, he reported a sighting where he said he saw a Bigfoot take a rock and there was a seal swimming in the water and the Bigfoot beamed it in the head and then swam out, grabbed it, threw it over its shoulder, swam back to shore and walked off into the forest with it.
That is incredible.
And that's why, like, when people tell me Bigfoot throw rocks at them, I know for a fact the Bigfoot aren't aiming at them directly. They're just trying to scare you and drive you out of their area. They will throw it at you if you don't get the hint and leave. You know what I mean? But like they've had reports of them doing that to deer, to, you know, I've heard in Anchorage, I heard reports of them doing it to moose. I actually heard of a Bigfoot running down a moose in Anchorage.
Really?
Out in Denali National Forest, there was a couple of hunters out there. You're not actually supposed to carry firearms in Denali Park, but, you know, a lot of people disregard that because there's friggin' huge grizzly bears out there. And if you encounter one, they're not afraid of people at all. And if they're hungry, they'll eat the crap out of you. So a lot of people do carry rifles out there and whatnot. But anyway, they saw a Bigfoot run down a moose, grab it, and like break its neck and drop it like a bad habit. And they said it literally picked the moose up. And this was a huge moose. They said it was probably 7 foot from the top of the head down. And they said that thing threw it over its shoulder and walked off. They said the Bigfoot was about 9 feet tall. And they said it was built like a brick shite house, is what the guy said. He said that thing was friggin' massive. And he said it easily picked it up, threw it over its shoulder, and walked away. The strength of a Bigfoot is unfreaking real. That's why when I hear people saying they'll shoot one, I talked to one of the elders about that. I said, has anybody ever shot one? He goes, hell no. What do you think? We're stupid? We're not going to shoot them. They live in families out there. If you see one Bigfoot, there's 2 or 3 others surrounding you. If you shoot one, the others will come in and kill you. So that's why I laugh when I hear people saying they're going to shoot a Bigfoot. It's like, you better hope it's alone.
You can try to shoot a Bigfoot, but it doesn't sound like you'll be getting away alive, potentially. You probably
no.
Yeah, definitely. Did you ever?
The other thing is.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to ask, did you ever have any reports of people hearing a lot of vocalizations in that area?
Oh, yeah, I heard them myself.
Oh, really? So what kind of things did you hear?
Yeah. Well, I've heard whoops, you know, like that. And there's nothing in Klowack and on Prince of Wales that makes that kind of noise. I've heard that. I've heard growls, obviously. That thing I heard, they going, woof, woof, like that at me. I heard that. I also heard one that kind of reminded me of that BC howl. Thinker Thunker put it on his site. I can't even imitate it.
Yep.
It's like real weird and high pitched, and It just like, it sounds really bizarre, but it sounded like that. And then I heard one once that was almost like that Ohio moan howl
Sure.
that some people do, like that. That kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
That's pretty good.
I heard something very like that. And then I heard one that was like a scream. And it sounded like Cliff Barrickman used to do it on Finding Bigfoot, beginning of it. He'd do this scream and it'd be like, he'd just go like that. And I heard something like that, but it was a lot louder and it carried for miles and like you could feel it. And one of the neighbor's dogs, when it heard that, ears went down, tail went between its legs, and that thing yiped, went in the house and wouldn't come out for a week. It was hiding under the bed. It actually wet all over itself and defecated on itself. It was so terrified.
So you've definitely heard a few things when you were up there. Did anyone ever report anything similar to like language or something that sounded like language or anything like that?
If you're talking about like that samurai chatter one, no.
Okay.
I never heard anything like that.
Gotcha.
If you're talking about that, what's that guy's name? Oh, I can't think of that gentleman's name. He's got that Sierra sounds.
Well,
Ron Moorhead.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. That's what I was referring to. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I have never heard anybody say they heard anything like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, but you're hearing all sorts of things up there. That is so interesting. It's crazier that I haven't heard more about this particular area. And maybe it's just because I'm not overly familiar with the Alaska Bigfoot scene. But man, Klowack, Alaska definitely seems like it's the place you should go if you wanted to research. Is this a place you can just walk into though, or is it all like you have to be associated with the particular tribes in order to go to that area?
Well, it really depends.
Okay.
Because like Craig, Alaska is not a tribal town. It's actually a town for people who are like not natives. And I don't mean native to Prince of Wales. I mean like people who are not Native American. A lot of them live there in Craig. And there's a guy out in Craig whose name for the life of me, I cannot think of that man's name, but he researches Bigfoot out there. He'll take you around. Generally, it's a good idea to reach out to people online, because there are like people out there in Craig or other places who let it be known that they are looking for Bigfoot on Prince of Wales. If you Google it, you can usually find somebody's name pop up, and you can always email them and see what they have to say.
Gotcha. Do a little digging, and it sounds like you'll find them. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I cannot for the life of me think of that guy's name. I haven't talked to him since like 2011. I'm not even sure if he's even still alive, to be honest.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely.
He was an older man, and I don't know if he's still living or even active. So, like I said, that was like, all those years ago. So.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, Alex, this has been an amazing chat about an area of Alaska I think deserves more respect for sure. I know it gets my respect now, no question. I want to thank you for coming on the show and for chatting for a bit.
I mean, we could talk for hours on all the stories I think. So, no, I think we've covered the basics. I think we've covered enough.
Perfect.
The one thing I do want to add, though, is that just that a lot of people out there think that the interdimensional Bigfoot stuff is Bigfoot. I just want to propose to people that it might not be a Bigfoot. It really might be a shape-shifting spirit. Now, I'm not saying to people who are diehard believers that Bigfoot is an interdimensional traveler or a UFO not or whatever. I wouldn't for the life of me disparage them. I know people have had their experiences, and I know they believe what they believe. And so I would never try to challenge that or disrespect that. But I would just like to put a bug in somebody's ear, to just think about that when you're talking about Bigfoot and saying that they're associated with orbs or UFOs, or like they walk into a forest and they disappear and the tracks stop dead and there's nowhere for them to disappear to, that you might not actually have encountered a Bigfoot. You might have encountered a skinwalker, a Amakuk, or a Kushtika, or whatever. Just a thought. That's all I got.
Well,
but it has been a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Alex. Become a supporting member of the Bigfoot Society podcast by going to www.patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society and receive extra episodes and early ad-free episodes as well. If you've got a personal Bigfoot encounter to share, please contact me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. And thanks for listening.